on BBC Radio 5 Sports Extra.
Off the coast of the Red Sea lies the Jeddah Corniche circuit, 27 turns, the second longest track on the F1 calendar, plays host to the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. The sun has set, the floodlights have come on, and 20 cars are about to set the fastest laps they can on this roller coaster of a street circuit with little runoff and where the walls are closer than you think. It's almost time for qualifying, and to guide you through all of the coverage is myself, Harry Benjamin. Alongside me is the former Formula One driver Jack Aitken and the BBC's chief F1 writer Andrew Benson. Jack, let's kick things off then. Is this Max Verstappen pole position to lose?
Oh, it's going to be an interesting one, because at least on one lap pace I think he has got competition. You know, Charles Leclerc and the Ferrari have been looking quite strong so far this weekend. He finished less than a tenth off yesterday, I think, and it's going to be, I think, an opportunity for them to really challenge for the pole. The Mercedes, they've struggled a little bit with instability with that car once again, as they did last year at times. But George Russell looking particularly strong. He's been outpacing his teammate Lewis Hamilton, so they could be up there as well.
Well, it's going to be a really challenging track that everybody has to get to grips with. 6.1 kilometres, 27 turns, 16 to the left and 11 to the right, getting up to speeds of almost 330 kilometres an hour. People describe this track as a cross between Spa and Monaco. Ultra high speed, a narrow strip of asphalt in between the barriers where drivers come speeding through. Andrew, what have we learned from the free practice session so far, and what are you expecting from this qualifying session from yourself?
I've learned that Max Verstappen is the fastest guy around this track.
Any other learnings?
I think he's going to be on pole by a decent amount, I have to say.
Really?
But maybe I'm wrong. I think he's going to walk the race unless he crashes or breaks down. Unless something goes wrong in qualifying like it did last year. But I don't see anyone challenging him, I have to say. The battle behind, though, is really close. Perez, Russell, Leclerc, maybe Alonso. The Aston Martin is hard to tell. He wasn't confident yesterday, Alonso. He was saying we tend to run a bit lighter and a bit more turned up than the other top teams in practice, so it kind of flattered them, he thought, his performance yesterday. But he's continued to be quick today, so maybe not. So I think behind it's going to be a really good battle, but unfortunately the P1 Max.
All right, well, there we go, but we still have 3 sessions of qualifying to get through. Q1, first of all, where the slowest 5 drivers out of the 20 that take part will be eliminated. The big news, of course, coming into free practice 3 earlier on today, Jack, was that Carlos Sainz this morning diagnosed with appendicitis and going for surgery and missing the rest of this weekend, being withdrawn, and that has meant the promotion of young Ferrari driver and Formula 2 frontrunner Oliver Bearman. Big shoes to fill, big opportunity as well, tough track to do it. He's only had 1 practice session. It's a big ask for him in qualifying.
And it was an interrupted practice session as well. The one thing that he was really hoping wouldn't happen, a red flag caused by Zhou Guanyu and his crash. But I think generally he's acquitted himself really well so far. You know, he built himself up, put in a good first run. He did a little bit of higher fuel running as well, just to get a feel of the car in those conditions. But yeah, what an opportunity. I mean, you come off the high of a pole in F2 and you get the call. It's a really, really special feeling, but then you're straight into the weekend trying to get on top of what needs to be done, the processes of the car, getting to know your engineers and team. There's a lot to do, so he's going to be full in it now, and maybe after the weekend he can reflect on what is a very, very special moment for him.
It certainly is. The 18-year-old from Essex in the United Kingdom. A bit of history on Oliver Bearman, if you're unaware. 2021, the German and Italian Formula 4 champion. In the same season, 2022, made the step up to Formula 3, finishing 3rd in the championship, and then in 2023 made the step up again to Formula Formula 2, finished 6th in the championship with 6 podiums, 3 pole positions and 4 wins to his name, and is now back in Formula 2 for this year. Actually was here already this weekend. The F2 cars are out running and supporting Formula 1 here. He set pole position for the race, but has now been withdrawn for the rest of the F2 weekend to focus, of course, on his Formula 1 opportunities. But the interesting thing, Jack, is yes, okay, bit down on track time here in the car, but he has had some modern day Formula 1 running with Ferrari and Haas last year as well in FP1s.
Absolutely, he's had a fair bit of testing. He's done some private testing as well as FP1s and official test sessions with both teams, as you mentioned. He's impressed in those sessions as well. He was out in the Mexican Grand Prix last year with Haas, and they were very, very complimentary of his performance, saying that it was as good as it gets in terms of FP1 debuts. So high praise, and there's a lot of expectation around him. He is one of the names being talked about as well for that customer seat from Ferrari in the Haas for 2025. So this could be a really great audition for him. And I think, you know, there's not a huge amount of expectation. He's got a very accomplished teammate in Charles Leclerc, which is a great thing for him, because I don't think anyone's expecting him to go out and beat Charles, but if he can get close to him, it's all upside.
Yeah, the youngest ever British Formula 1 driver, and the first English Formula 1 driver for Ferrari since Nigel Mansell, and Behrman is released from his pit garage and makes his way down the pit lane because it's green light and we are underway for Q1. Worth saying that we do wish Carlos Sainz a speedy recovery to be back for Australia in a couple of weeks' time. Ferrari have issued a statement in between free practice 3 and now, saying Sainz is out of surgery, everything went well, and he is now resting at the hospital. We're sending him our full support for a quick recovery, so that is good to hear. But now it is all focus on qualifying. 20 cars will take to this Jeddah Corniche circuit. The slowest 5 will be eliminated within the next 16 and a half minutes. The Red Bulls not in a hurry to get out there, but we do have a fair few cars out on track already. We've got the 2 Saubers, the 2 Aston Martins. Actually, I say the 2 Saubers, only the 1 Sauber, Zhou Guanyu, yet to get out of the garage. He had a big shunt in FP3, didn't he, Jack?
Yeah, and the last shot that we saw of him just a minute or 2 ago, the covers were still off that car, the engine covers, so still work being done to that car. They've got about 14 minutes to get that car on the ground and rolling so that he can actually set a lap time. It's going to be really, really hard work, not just for them to get the car out, but for the Sauber to get through to the next session. They've not really had the pace this weekend.
Well, Joe has got his helmet on. He's standing to the side of his car, having a chat with his engineers while the mechanics work frantically. The Sauber hinched high up in the sky in that garage, just starting to get lowered down. No tyres on the 4 corners of that car. And Jack, you're shaking your head.
There are about 50 jobs going on at once there. It's a hint of desperation as the mechanics worked really, really urgently to try and get the job done, but they've got a lot on their plate, that's for sure.
Well, first laps then coming at us, and Lando Norris speeds down the main straight into the braking zone of turns 1 and 2. This is the sound of the British racer, best qualifying around this track, of 7th place from 2021. Makes his way out through the left-right chicane of turns 1 and 2. Then it's a short burst down to turn number 5. That was the scene of Zhou Guanyu's crash. Big crash in FP3. It's a quick left-hand kink. Lando Norris so far seeming fairly smooth through this first sector, Jack.
Yeah, it looks pretty clean and tidy. He's using a bit more curb than some of the other drivers that we've been seeing, picking up a little bit of a toe from, I believe that was Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari as he runs down to turn 13. Big banking. It helps hold the car down as you try and get the power down, and using all of the track on the way out, shaping up now for turns 16 and 17, a quick chicane that rolls onto a back straight, quite long, so it's important to get a good exit, which he does. Looks fairly clean, nothing too ragged, not too heart in your mouth stuff, which is a common occurrence around this track. Shaping up now for turn 22, one that we've seen a couple of drivers clip the inside wall. You have to cut the corner as much as possible to try and straighten it out. Very, very fast corner that leads onto another long straight, this time with DRS. Going down the back straight, usually got a bit of a tailwind, and that's the case here tonight as well. So speed picks up even quicker, hard on the brakes. Bring the car in nice and early, brush the wall on the inside and the one on the outside. Little kick of oversteer as he gets on the power and a run to the line.
Personal best set to 1 and 2 for Lando Norris. Is not fastest overall though, crosses the line. First flying lap on the soft compound tyre. Third fastest, just over half a tenth back from Nico Hülkenberg's fastest lap time. And as I say that, Fernando Alonso crosses the line to go fastest with a 1:28.8. Behrman out there as well in his first flying lap for Ferrari. Everybody out there on the soft compound tyre. That's the quickest compound tyre with the exception of the two Mercedes. They've gone out on the medium compound tyre, Russell and Hamilton. Alonso and Stroll now in the second. Aston Martin has just joined in as the leading times come in. The sound of Behrman crossing the line for his first flyer. Enough for 10th fastest at the moment, a 1:31. So the plan of action for Behrman, Jack, in this first session, is it to just dial in and build up?
Yeah, but he's got to do it quickly. You know, the time for dialing and building up was earlier today in the practice session. He's now got to start taking a bit of risk if he wants to really make an impression. 1.2 seconds off the pace, that's quite a gap. I'm sure he's going to have plenty to improve upon for the next lap. We're now on board with Charles Leclerc, who is coming through turns 16, 17, looking fairly composed. His sector 1 isn't too bad. And yeah, the Ferraris do have the pace here, so you know, I think they could challenge if they have a good balance in that car. Charles Leclerc all over the exit curve coming out of turn 22. You do play a bit of a risk with those curves, because if you go too far, the car will bottom out, you lose control and you could have a big accident. But he plays that nicely down into the last corner now. No issues there, no lockup, looking pretty steady on the steering wheel. And yeah, could be a decent lap here. No purple sectors though, so it doesn't look like he's going to overhaul Alonso's time.
No, rear wing flap flies open for the DRS, and as he crosses the line, he eases off the throttle, and it's a tenth and a half back from Fernando Alonso. Leclerc and the Ferrari slots into second. Logan Sargent is out on the track as well. He had an incident in FP3 where he hit the wall and broke his front left. Here's Nico Hülkenberg. And that's Hülkenberg referring to Logan Sargent in the Williams, stuck behind him, trying to get through. I think Hülkenberg was on a bit of a fast lap there and not happy with Sargent's Williams parked in the middle of the road. Yeah, traffic's a big issue at this track. You know, the speed differential between the cars that are pushing and the ones that are not is huge. And you've got a lot of blind parts of this track as well, because the straights are curved, and that means that your line of sight isn't very long. So the engineers really have to be on it with telling their drivers who's coming and who's not. Hülkenberg's teammate Magnussen has just gone up to third fastest. Hülkenberg losing a bit of time in the middle sector. Piastri in the McLaren is flying though at the moment. Fastest of anybody in that first sector. Good middle sector as well. Norris also going well too on his lap. The two McLarens are currently 6th and 7th. Hülkenberg crosses the line, can't improve, stays 5th fastest for the German in the Haas. Made it into Q3 this time last week, and Piastri coming out of the final corner gets a big snap on the steering wheel, almost clouts the wall, but just about keeps hold of it, and it's enough still to go fastest of anybody with 10.5 minutes left at this first stage of qualifying, with a 1:28.7 for the Australian driver in that McLaren. I'm looking at his car, and amazingly it doesn't seem to be damaged by that. It was quite a hefty clunk that he gave the wall, just a big snap of oversteer right as he got next to the wall, but he looks to have gotten away with that. He'll be sure to get the mechanics to check things over when he's back in the pits though. Joining Behrman for a lap now, all over the curve on the exit of turn 22, sparks flying up from the underside of his Ferrari. He's 4 tenths down on Piastri going into sector 3, so that's not too bad on this lap. He's making big improvements from the first lap. No, but the problem is it's fine margins in Formula One field, particularly in qualifying at the moment, and Behrman comes out of the final corner and gets oh so close to that outside wall, just like Piastri did a lap ago. Behrman across the line. He's fastest of anybody though in that final sector. Behrman 4th fastest, just under 2.5 tenths back from Oscar Piastri's quickest time. At the moment it's Piastri, Norris, Alonso, Behrman and Leclerc, the top 5 in the elimination zone at the moment. We're still waiting. They're coming through now. Lap times from the two Red Bulls of Verstappen and Perez, and Verstappen is going quicker than anybody in the first sector. Also out there at the moment is Daniel Ricciardo. He's just coming to the end of the first sector now, and Zhou Guanyu still not out of the pits with a lot of work going on in that Sauber. It's going to be a race against time to get that Chinese Formula One driver out onto the track. Yeah, that was a scintillating final sector from Behrman, but I think we're about to see another one from Verstappen. It could be bettered here, and Perez over the line. He's 0.06 of a second down on Piastri. So into P2, race control saying it's a black and white flag for Russell for crossing that line at pit entry. That's something we've seen a few drivers fall foul of, but
The timing screens are lighting up. We've got quite a few purple sectors coming through now, not least from Verstappen. Alonso's on a good lap as well.
Yeah, Alonso fastest of anybody in the middle sector as Max Verstappen crosses the line and goes fastest, over 2.5 tenths clear of the McLaren of Oscar Piastri. Then comes Sergio Perez. This is the sound of Fernando Alonso making his way out the final corner, up through the gears, up into 7th and across the line. He'll get to 8th before he does so, and he goes 3rd fastest. Lost a bit of time in that final sector actually, but still improves to go 3rd behind Leclerc. Piastri, Perez, the top 5, Norris, Behrman, Magnussen, Alonso, Stroll, the top 10, Hülkenberg, Hamilton, Russell, Gasly, the top 15, at risk, Sargent, Bottas, Ocon. Still no time from Tsunoda, and still in the pits is Zhou Guanyu.
And can I just say, I think Oliver Behrman is booking himself a Formula 1 seat for next season, because 2 runs into Q1, he's only 3 tenths behind Charles Leclerc. That is an incredibly impressive effort from him.
It's a mighty effort from him, and considering how close he got to the wall, on board, we've just seen a replay of how close Oscar Piastri got to the wall, and he did touch it.
Clip the wall. Yeah, copy that.
Yeah, he actually touched it with both axles there. He first had the kick from the rear, which touched just a tyre, it looks like, on the rear, and then it pinged the front around to also get a touch on the front as well. Behrman having a little snap of oversteer, a little replay of his final corner there, but he was really quick in that last sector. He made up quite a bit of time on his teammate Charles Leclerc there, and getting the slow-mo, he doesn't touch the wall but gets about as close as you can, and his poor father in the garage having a mini heart attack, I think, watching the replay.
His face is an absolute mask of tension, isn't it? It's like hilarious.
Poor guy. We could feel the sigh of relief through the screen that we're watching. But to reiterate Andrew's point, Behrman doing a very solid job in his first ever Formula 1 qualifying. The 18-year-old making the step up. He's only had FP3 in completely different, unrepresentative track conditions. FP3 earlier on today was in the daytime. The temperatures were higher. It was his first time in the 2024 Ferrari. He's been racing here in Formula 2, but his first lap was nearly 10 seconds quicker in an F1 car than his pole lap in Formula 2. Fantastic work so far from Oliver Behrman. 6.5 minutes left of this Q1 session, where the slowest 5 drivers will be eliminated as we set the grid for Saturday's Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. At risk at the moment is Pierre Gasly in the Alpine in 16th, the Williams of Logan Sargent, Valtteri Bottas in the Sauber, the other Alpine of Esteban Ocon, and still with no time on the board, and the more it ticks down, the more I think that we are not going to see Zhou Guanyu take part in this qualifying session after the team are desperately trying to fix that car from its big crash in FP3. Hamilton across the line, 8th fastest.
Yeah, Mercedes were on board there, still struggling a little bit with the rear, it looks like. A little snaps all the way through the 2nd sector and 3rd sector for Hamilton, so struggling a little bit to keep that car under control. Russell now coming through the last corner. He's going to see if he can improve. Currently 15th, not really representative times on the board yet, and he's up to P4, just 2.5 tenths down, so that is a step forward for the Mercedes, but still not quite on terms with the absolute front-running pace.
And Hamilton's struggles continue, don't they? There's 2 races in a row. I mean, we're only at the beginning of qualifying, not the end. Don't want to rule Lewis Hamilton out, of course. Most successful Formula 1 driver in history, but same as in Bahrain, he's struggling to keep up with Russell here again in Saudi Arabia.
You're absolutely right, Andrew. Russell at the moment at 4th, and Hamilton, down in 9th. Couple of tenths between them. Just seeing that Zhou Guanyu is now in that Sauber, but the engineers and mechanics wrestling with the time limit. I think they're getting the casings onto the tyres.
Yeah, trying to get the drum on that front left corner, and the rest of the car is ready to go. The mechanics standing by, Joe in the car, and they were all pointing to one of the sections of that drum, and something's not quite going on as it should, so there could be a bit of heartbreak if it's not, it looked like they were set to get a lap or two there.
Well, the Sauber seem down on pace at the moment, particularly over 1 lap. His teammate Bottas is only 18th fastest, so if Joe can get out, he might get 1 lap. But whether that lifts him off the bottom of the timing screens, we'll have to wait and see. The 2 RBs are right on the fringes of the elimination zone as well. Ricciardo ahead of Tsunoda. There's not much between those 2, 14th and 15th. The 2 Hasses showing well again in qualifying. This time, though, it's Magnussen who is currently the quicker of the 2, with Hülkenberg down in 3rd 13th, but Hulkenberg is on another lap at the moment. It's a decent first sector from Hulkenberg. Magnussen at the moment coming through the middle sector. A bit of traffic for Hulkenberg of the Williams as he tries to navigate his way through this circuit, just getting past Sargent once again as he now approaches the left-hander of turn 13.
Yeah, Hulkenberg, one that's always been pretty good at getting the most out of his car on a one-lap pace situation, so he's wringing the neck of that Haas, trying to get as much as he can, getting close to the walls in turns 14 and 15. He looks like he's on it, and sparks flying from the other side of that Haas, running it fairly low to get the most out of the floor. It's looking to be a decent lap. He's got a purple mini sector in there as well.
Good middle sector so far from Hulkenberg as he comes into the final sector now. Going well too is Charles Leclerc, who is coming towards the end of his lap, and he does indeed go fastest. Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, a 1:28.3. Just crosses the line. Verstappen on an outlap at the moment, down in second, but we're not paying too much attention to those at the front. It's all about getting out of the bottom 5 in this qualifying session. Hulkenberg will be trying to give himself a bit more of a gap, and he does indeed do that. Crosses the line and goes 10th fastest, a 1:29.0 for Hulkenberg. Bottas crosses the line, gets himself out of the elimination zone. He pulls himself up into 14th place.
Getting a little replay of Hulkenberg, and he's all the way over the curb, the tall curb on the exit of turn 22, just as we'd spoken about earlier, grinding out across it, all 4 wheels off the ground at one point, managing to keep it pointing in the right direction.
Joe's not getting out here, is he? He's still in the pit lane. He's not getting out in time with just over 2 minutes left. If he does so,
yeah,
it will be a miracle. But in trouble at the moment, the 2 RBs of Ricciardo and Tsunoda, the 2 Alpines of Gasly and Ocon, and Logan Sargent. The 2 RBs on outlaps at the moment. Sargent on a lap, but it's not good enough at the time for this time. It's currently down in 18th, but not finding time in that first sector. And I don't believe it. Sauber get Zhou Guanyu out of the pit lane. He pulls out from that Sauber garage in the fluoro green livery and makes his way down towards the end of the pit lane.
He will reach the line in time to do 1 lap. He's going to have to do a very fast outlap, which isn't ideal for the tyres, but they can do it. So, as you say, that Sauber is going to struggle for pace. It'll be a tall challenge to get through to Q2, but chapeau to the mechanics in that garage. Well done.
Top work from the Swiss-based team that are set to become Audi in the next couple of years. His teammate Bottas is up in 14th. Logan Sargent trying for all his might to get himself out of the bottom 5 at a track where he nearly got into Q2 this time last year. Had he not exceeded track limits, he finds time in that final sector, but it's not enough. He stays 18th fastest for Sargent. Zhou Guanyu coming through the middle sector on his outlap now. He will just get there in time. The 2 RBs, Ricciardo faring slightly better than Tsunoda on this lap. The Alpine of Gasly showing a few green first sectors, but they're not setting the world alight.
Yeah, on board with Ricciardo now in the RB. He's just coming up towards the sector 2 line, 4.5 tenths off Leclerc. It's not bad, but he too runs wide over the curb on the exit of turn 22. A little bit of time lost there. That's going to cost him all the way down the straight towards the final corner. Tsunoda 1 and a bit tenths up on his teammate going across the sector 2 line. So the fight between the 2 RBs there, very close, but in favour of Tsunoda. And that was very close from Ricciardo. He gets a little bit of a wobble mid-corner in the last turn, and that's going to cost him as well.
Ricardo will be first across the line for the RB. He hauls himself up into 11th spot. That pushes Tsunoda down and Bottas onto the fringes, but Tsunoda immediately betters his lap time and goes all the way up to 9th spot. The Japanese driver safely through. Down into the bottom 5 is Valtteri Bottas, Gasly, Sargent, Ocon and Zhou. Zhou now just starting his lap. I don't think he made it. I think he took the checkered flag, Zhou. He didn't make it. Stroll crosses the line, gets up into 2nd spot, puts Bottas still down in the bottom 5. What can Ocon do in the other Alpine? He improves his time, but it's still 17th ahead of Gasly. Ocon out-qualifies his teammate for the 2nd time in a row this season. Bottas on the fringes, but he's bailed out of this one. He comes into the final corner. He'd not found time, and that will be it for qualifying. And the bottom 5 eliminated. Bottas in 16th, Ocon in 17th, Gasly in 18th, Sargent 19th, and Zhou didn't get across the line in time.
Just getting a shot of the Sauber garage now, and the look on some of the mechanics' faces as if to say, can you believe it? All of that work and we missed the flag by mere seconds. That's hard to take. But a bit anticlimactic at the end there, because a lot of cars went out as a bit of a precaution to try and make sure that they protected against the track evolution, but not as much improvement as perhaps people were expecting in the final laps there.
No, and it's exactly the same 5 drivers knocked out in Q1 here in Saudi Arabia as were in Bahrain last week, with Valtteri Bottas in the Sauber 16th. The 2 Alpines, Ocon ahead of Gasly 17th and 18th. Here is Ocon.
Sorry guys, very sorry.
No mate, it's all good.
And Sargent 18th, Joe last.
It isn't all good though, is it, Alpine? Let's be honest. The slowest car again for the second race in a row.
At least they're not right on the back of the grid this time.
But they're the slowest car because Albon's ahead of them. Sargent's irrelevant, isn't he? He's not quick enough. So this is dark times for Alpine, and it's, what is it, 5,000 between the 2 drivers or something like that? It's really 4,000.
When the drivers are that close, that generally means they're both doing a good job.
Yeah.
Not always, but rule of thumb.
I mean, they're not top level, are they? They're not Verstappen or Hamilton or Leclerc, but they're both very decent pedalers, and that's dark times.
And an indication that it is indeed bigger issues within the car and at the French constructor. Alpine then double elimination, Sauber double elimination as well, and Williams losing 1 car. Good lap at the end from Lance Stroll, got himself up into second in the Aston Martin. Max Verstappen finished that session top, managed to get a 1:28.1 at the end of that. The grandstands starting to fill up nicely around this Jeddah Corniche circuit as we head towards Q2.
Unbelievable.
Box. Yeah, you were 1/10 up on yourself.
That's Bottas on the radio saying unbelievable. I wonder, I don't think we saw it, but he made a mistake by the sound of things on that final flying lap.
I would guess more traffic. Generally, when a driver's got that tone to him, that's can you believe what they did? So there were quite a lot of cars out on track at the end there. So
1/10 would have done it as well.
Yeah,
such are the fine margins.
Exactly, gutting. So tough to take. Just getting a note from the stewards, Behrman failing to follow the race director's instructions for the maximum delta. So that generally means that he was going too slowly. They have a maximum delta to not have cars dawdling around the track on their slow laps and being a danger to others, and they therefore have to be above a certain lap time, and it looks as if he's infringed on that. He also seems to have gone off on his second flying lap there at the end when everyone was trying to get their final laps in, because it says he cut the course at turn 4.
Anyway, thanks for getting me out there.
That's just Joe Guanyu on the radio there saying thank you to the team for getting him out at the very least, as he gets pulled back into the garage, clambers out of his car, and gets a pat on the back from his mechanics as he exchanges words with them. A very, very good team effort to get him out, but just a few seconds short from being able to get 1 lap in time for Joe Guanyu. He'll start this Saudi Arabian Grand Prix from 20th and last. Behrman in the end, despite if he didn't get that last flyer in, finished 9th, 1:28.9 his fastest lap time. Leclerc with a 1:28.3, so about 0.6 of a second between them in the end. I'd actually say it's not a bad effort for Q1.
Yeah, not bad at all. He did a good job on the first run. The gap was a bit smaller than that. Leclerc was improving lap on lap there, so it's hard to get a true side-by-side comparison, but not bad. I think he's going to want more. He was quite close to being knocked out in the end, actually, time-wise, just over a 10th or so from the knockout zone. So he's going to need to find a little bit more to be safe through this next part of the qualifying. But yeah, good start for Oliver.
I think it's, well, considering the field spread at the moment is tight in Formula One, and to be able to assert himself right in the thick of it on a track that requires such incredible attention as the replay we're seeing and you're hearing of Valtteri Bottas is demonstrating, where he found traffic on his lap, a car to his right, a car to his left, having to back off the throttle on his quick lap. The pressure on Behrman to perform is massive, so I think that is a brilliant start for him, and a shame for Bottas there to get blocked on his last flying lap.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think I said earlier, it's a pretty low pressure debut in the sense that He's come in late. He's got a very good teammate that he's not necessarily expected to beat. But F1 being F1 and elite sport being what it is, you never have a free lunch. You know, people will be watching him. They will be evaluating every move that he makes. And as cruel as it sounds, the difference between being 3 or 4 tenths off Charles Leclerc and being 6 or 7 tenths off Charles Leclerc, that could mean a lot. And he knows that, and everyone around him knows that. So I have no doubt that he's putting a lot of pressure on himself to get the job done. But so far, doing everything that he needs to. Be interesting to see how high he can get himself here.
Perez ended that session at 4th fastest in the Red Bull, 1:28.6 his fastest time, about half a second off of Verstappen at the end of the Q1 running. Getting into Q2 then, coming up in a few moments' time, 15 drivers taking part, and once again we will eliminate the slowest 5 of them, so everybody from 11th down to 15th as we continue to set the grid for Saturday's Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. And already cars lining up, eager to get out in the pit lane. The 2 Ferraris lying astern, Leclerc in front of Behrman. They're not first in the queue though, they've got a couple of McLarens in front of them.
I do wonder the merits of sitting in the queue when you're that far back, because you've had the tyre warmers off for a while and you just sat there losing temperature when everyone's going to go really slowly out the pit exit, as has become the norm in these qualifying sessions. But they're doing it anyway. On board with Hamilton, he's one that's got to find a bit of pace. He's been on the edges of the top 10, so lacking a bit of pace even compared to his teammate. This could be a bit of a challenge for him in this session. We'll see if he can find something, but he's just not gelling with the car this weekend. Both of them, not just Lewis, have been unhappy with the balance of that Mercedes through practice. So it's been a tough weekend so far for the Mercedes duo, when they'd been expecting this car to be a step forward from last year, really.
Absolutely, and Hamilton, as we've discussed, seemingly not gelling as well with the car as his teammate George Russell is at the moment. Hamilton, of course, who took the first pole position for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix when it first came onto the calendar back in 2021, and then went on to win it as well. And what was a fierce race between himself and Max Verstappen in that title-defining season. But cars back out on track then, Q2 underway under the lights around this 6.1 kilometre Jeddah Corniche circuit, just on the waterfront area next to the Red Sea. The most amount of corners of any track on the Formula One calendar, 27 of them, 16 to the left, 11 to the right. You're full throttle for well over 70% of a lap. And this is the sound of George Russell on an out lap, just warming up his tyres. Coming into the braking zone for the final corner, turn 27, the left-hander, which brings you back onto the main straight. The pit lane entry to your left as he gets ready for a flying lap up into 8th gear, speeding down to turns 1 and 2.
Yep, making sure you get a nice exit on the way out of the last corner. It's a long run to the first corner, so that is worth a bit of time, and every millisecond counts in these sessions. But getting the helicopter shot, some sparks flying as he goes into turn 4, commits hard to the left-hander, then right, then left, then double left into the zone where Zhou Guanyu crashed earlier. A little twitch from the rear, he catches it nicely though, carries on, might have had to lift out of that a little bit, cost a bit of time, but heading now down towards turn 13, the big bank corner through sector 1. It's okay, but perhaps not the very best. He's got a little bit of time to find compared to his rivals. Big sparks again, heading down towards 15, 16 and 17. It's a quick sequence of corners that leads out onto the back straight. Round towards the final part of the middle sector now for George Russell. He comes through turns 21, 22. Hulkenberg on the radio.
I've lost of power, something's wrong.
Hulkenberg in the house saying he's lost power, something is wrong. Hulkenberg is currently out on the track. Looks like sector 2 he's in there, so he's not got too many cars behind him. Hopefully won't get in the way, but he's going to try and crawl that back to the pits. And he's actually stopped on track at the end of sector 1. Yellow flag, end of sector. I was going to say he's disappeared off my driver tracker, but he has come to a stop as Russell crosses the line. Does go fastest. Hulkenberg stopped at the end of sector 1.
This is why they were queuing up, because the likelihood of an interruption at this track is very high. Only the McLarens and the Mercedes have got lap times in so far. Magnussen gets across the line. Both Ferraris looking to close their lap, and it goes red. They don't manage it.
Oh, damn. You need to switch off the car, switch off the engine, Nico, switch off.
Yeah. Leclerc and Behrman were painfully close to getting their lap done.
Leclerc was just about to finish his lap time and didn't get it in. Straight back. Behrman managed to bail out into the pits before completing it. That would have also affected Alex Albon. Sergio Perez was out on a lap as well. And this is the sound of Nico Hulkenberg's house. Let's listen in. Heading down the main straight.
Doesn't sound happy there. It's a bit grumbly.
Comes out of the first chicane.
Oh, that's horrible. Lots of juddering, big hesitations from the engine. Something's badly out of sync there, and then he loses power completely as he comes towards turn 6.
His head moving from left to right, checking his mirrors. He's in a really tricky spot trying to find the runoff area, and he does so. So a good effort from Hulkenberg to get out of the way on the exit of turn 6. But that, unfortunately, might mean the end of Nico Hulkenberg's qualifying in the Haas. It will do. And a shake of the head from team principal Aya Komatsu on the pit wall. Hulkenberg, who managed to get into the top 10 in Bahrain, won't be able to do that this time around.
So it's kind of worst case scenario for Leclerc. They will have plenty of time to get back out, of course, and do more laps, because the clock does stop in qualifying. Still 11 minutes to go, but he's effectively wasted a set of tyres on what was going to be a very decent lap, but didn't count for anything. And he's even had to cross the line and go another full lap to get back to the pits. Well, similar for Behrman.
It shouldn't be too bad, Jack, because I think they were all on used tyres for that lap. So he's got a new tyre run still to come. And on that lap, just looking at Leclerc compared to Oliver Behrman, after the first two sectors, it looked like Behrman was about half a second or so behind Leclerc. So solid, but you can't sniff at that. If he can be half a second, 6/10 off Leclerc, I think in this session that'll be a job well done.
That's kind of the level or gap that we've been talking about previous to coming on air, wasn't it? That's the kind of place that we expect him to be. So if he can outperform that, great.
Cars back into the garages then, as we are under red flag conditions for Nico Hulkenberg's Haas, coming to a stop out on track in turn 5. The clock does not continue to count down. It is stopped, so we will get 10 minutes and 58 seconds when we eventually get the green flag back up and running. But Hulkenberg then conking out in the Haas did affect the Albon of the Williams of Albon, the Red Bull of Perez, and the two Ferraris. The two Mercedes did get lap times in. Russell was actually fastest at the end of those first runs in front of Norris in the McLaren, then Hamilton in the Mercedes. Piastri was fourth, and Magnussen, didn't do a representative lap time, but did a lap time, so it gets him into the top 5. Those are all the cars that set any kind of lap time before the red flag came out. And we will, though, get this Q2 session back underway in a couple of minutes' time. 8:34 local time, so 5:34 this afternoon.
Just looking at the teams, they're going to go again and Q, it looks like. So Behrman, one of the first out this time, and it's a brand new set of softs on that car, very shiny and lovely, and he's going to be first in the queue as well, followed swiftly by both Mercedes, both Red Bulls, Astons, the RBs. Everyone's getting out because, again, they want to make sure that they get a lap in should there be another interruption.
Behrman leading the way, though, comes to a stop at the end of the pit lane, waiting for the green light to come on at the end of it. And everybody queuing up behind him as well. Hamilton in the Mercedes, Alonso in the Aston Martin.
On the Mercedes, at least on the lead car of the two, I didn't see which driver it was, but there were used tyres on that car. Having got a lap time in, they're going to probably use that set again before then switching on to a new soft for the end. So they're going to go for 2 runs here.
Well spotted, Jack Aiken. Verstappen finds himself behind his teammate Perez in that queue, and just trying to see which Mercedes it was.
I think that's Hamilton at the front,
I think it's Hamilton, isn't it?
But both of them have used sets.
Yeah. Well, moments away then from the green light coming on and getting this Q2 session back underway as we set the grid for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, which will take place on Saturday, and you can hear it all live on the BBC Sport website and will be on air from 4:45 in the afternoon on Saturday. Right now, though, it is qualifying. We've already lost Zhou Guanyu in 20th and last. The Sauber team doing a great job to fix that car and get it out, but he just missed getting over the checkered flag in time. Sargent in the Williams 19th, the two Alpines, Gasly behind Ocon, and Valtteri Bottas and the other Sauber getting knocked out just on the cusp in 16th. 15 cars all make their way now back onto the track as Q2 is now underway. We will eliminate the slowest 5 drivers come the end of the next 10 minutes and 23 seconds. A lot of eyes on the young 18-year-old British driver Oliver Bearman, making his Formula One debut this weekend in the Ferrari in place of Carlos Sainz, who we wish well and a good recovery after having surgery for appendicitis. He will hopefully be back in a couple of weeks' time for the Australian Grand Prix, but a massive opportunity for Bearman, who was here anyway in Saudi Arabia on reserve duties for Ferrari and also racing in the Formula 2 Championship that is supporting. He actually set pole position in F2 for qualifying before getting the call up to finish off his weekend in a scarlet red Ferrari. And at the moment, looking around about half a second off his teammate Charles Leclerc, which is a good effort. But let's see how he gets on in Q2 for the rest of it, at least. Everybody then heading back out on track with the exception of the two McLarens. They've stayed in the pits. Norris second fastest at the moment, Piastri fourth.
Russell was hassling Hamilton through the middle sector there. Usually teams have defined orders that they want their cars to go in, Hamilton being the lead car, but Russell was looking for an opportunity to get past and Hamilton was having none of it. So they resume as is, on board with Bearman now in the visor cam, no less, and going through turn 1, chooses to avoid the curbs for the most part. Big slide from the rear as he gets on the power. It's that slow speed, he scoops it up, no big problem. And into turn 4 now, a big lock up from the inside left. He keeps it more or less on track, but he's lost a lot of time. And is he going to carry on with this, or are he going to bail out and try and go again next time round? I think he has bailed out. Yes, he has. So he's going to abort this one. It was a bit messy. Go for another warm-up lap and try again.
A lot of pressure on Bearman. Just in at the deep end is the least you could say.
It's funny, I was going to say how your first run and Bearman's first run was quite impressive, and I think it's quite easy to just jump in, feel natural and let it flow. And it's just, you're just driving, there's no expectation at that point. It's your first laps. But as you get into this phase of experience with the car, you're slowly looking for more, you're pushing the limits a bit more, asking more of the car, asking more of yourself and testing things, and that's when the mistakes start to come. And if you're not careful, very quickly transitions into trying too hard, being too tense with the car.
Overdriving.
Yeah, overdriving and overthinking it. Don't want to extrapolate too far here. That's just one or two lockups that we've seen from Oliver.
Straight in Aiken.
But these are the pitfalls that can happen when you're a new driver in a situation like this, and it's what you have to watch out for.
And the other thing is, he'll probably know that he'll want to be respectably close to Leclerc, and he knows that no one's better than Leclerc at pulling that big lap out at the end of the session.
Absolutely.
So many things for Bearman to be thinking about and focusing on getting around this 6.1 kilometre 27 corner track. Verstappen and Perez on their first initial laps post red flag. Perez crosses the line, goes fastest, 1:28.5. Coming towards the end of Q2, Sergio Perez has just gone fastest. We've lost Bottas, Ocon, Gasly, Sargent and Zhou Guanyu in the first part of qualifying, but Verstappen is once again looking mighty. All eyes, though, on the young 18-year-old British driver Oliver Bearman, making his Formula One debut in place of Carlos Sainz, who's having surgery for appendicitis. He's currently about half a second off his teammate Charles Leclerc. Back on 5 Sports Extra for you, just giving a little bit of an update there to main 5 live. 6.5 minutes left remaining. Leclerc back out, losing a little bit of time in that middle sector. Ricciardo's on the lap as well. He's not on a good lap. This is Leclerc, good in the middle sector at the beginning of it, a mini sector coming out of the final corner now for Leclerc to the line. Verstappen currently fastest, a 1:28.0, less than half a tenth clear of Alonso. What's Leclerc got in his locker? It's enough for third fastest at the moment. Still waiting times then from Behrman, who's come into the pits actually at the end of that lap.
Yeah, chosen with the time remaining to get back into the pits, possibly make a change, get a new set of softs on, and make sure that the last run is a good one. But at less than a tenth, or just over a tenth, sorry, covering the top three at the moment, and it's three different teams. That's brilliant. Leclerc, Alonso, and of course Verstappen leading the way. So it's very tight up there. And just got a shot of a pretty glum Nico Hülkenberg, who's stuck on the wrong side of the track with a session going on, so he can't get back yet.
I'll tell you what as well, we've been talking about pressure on drivers and what have you. One person we've not really talked about in that context is Sergio Perez. He came into this season and it was very clear from Christian Horner at the end of last year that Perez needed to up his game in qualifying if he was going to be keeping his seat after the end of this season. And this is looking like a humiliation for him so far this weekend. He's been pretty much half a second off Verstappen all the time. That's where he is at the moment, 0.461 behind after that first run in Q2 on the used tyres. We've got Alonso and Leclerc between him and Verstappen, and okay, the Red Bull's so quick that he'll get it up to second in the race probably, but that is not the sort of performance Red Bull want to see from Perez for the rest of this year.
I think, Andrew, you said it perfectly there. It was similar in Bahrain. Yes, he managed to finish in second, but come the end of the race, over 20 seconds behind his teammate Max Verstappen. And as that midfield converges, and when we say the midfield, well, everyone behind Max Verstappen, it seems, in this current day and age of Formula One, Perez becomes a real liability for Red Bull if he cannot get closer to Max Verstappen. Last 4.5 minutes left of Q2. Piastri's on a decent lap in the first sector. In danger, Kevin Magnussen in the Haas, Daniel Ricciardo in the RB, Alex Albon in the Williams, Ollie Behrman has just gone back out on an outlap at the moment in the Ferrari, and Nico Hülkenberg resigned to start 15th at best after a suspected power unit issue for his Haas forces him to be on the sidelines. Piastri, personal best in the middle sector. Lando Norris going quickly in the first sector.
This is a good lap from Piastri, and he is pushing that McLaren. He's had a few wiggles in some scary parts of the track, but held it together, and he's still only a tenth off Verstappen as he goes across the sector 2 line, going through the last corner now, and it looks fairly clean, but that McLaren is on the edge, and both him and Norris looking like they could do good laps here.
Yeah, Norris coming into the middle of the middle sector now. Norris and Piastri. Meanwhile, the Australian crosses the line. Piastri goes up to fourth fastest. This is the sound of his teammate Lando Norris, and you can just hear that sound scraping along the surface of this Jeddah Corniche track into the left-hander of turn 23. It's a quick right-hander round turns 24 and 25. You come towards the DRS line, the rear wing flap flies open, increasing your top speed. It's a slight left-hand kink, losing a little bit of time for Norris in that middle sector. One final corner to go for him through the left-hander of 27, out as close as you dare to the wall. The pit lane entry to your left. Norris, DRS open, foot to the floor, up into 8th gear, goes fourth fastest in the McLaren.
Just 4 thousandths of a second between the two McLarens there in the favour of Norris. Behrman coming across the line now, and he's 2 tenths out of the top 10. He is in the elimination zone, so that lap was looking not too bad at the sector 2 point, so I don't know what's happened at the last sector. He's lost some time.
Yeah, just under 2.5 tenths outside of what he needs to get into the top 10. We're just getting another look at what happened to Behrman on his lap, coming into the left-hander of 23 and just ran a little bit wide, and that sent him all off kilter.
I tell you what, he looks like he's really trying to push that thing now. He was really close to the entry wall on his way into the corner, not even part of the corner.
Oh, did he even touch the wall?
I don't know, but if he didn't, it was flipping close. I mean, that was hard. And then, for good measure, he had to turn out of it as he got towards the apex, because as we've seen other cars do, he nearly clipped the inside wall. That put him off the offline going across the exit curb, and he got all 4 wheels off the ground. That Ferrari took a big hit. He's got a chance for one more lap, but those tyres are going to be used now. They're past their best.
Let's see what Behrman can do in these closing stages of Q2. Albon out there and attacking to try and get himself out of the bottom 5. The Thai driver currently 14th fastest, only ahead of Nico Hülkenberg, who has had to retire from this session. Personal best from Alex Albon and the Williams in Sector 1. Piastri's out there again as well, as is George Russell, who's down in 8th. Lewis Hamilton is on the bubble in 10th. If Behrman can improve, that will put Hamilton down into the bottom 5 and eliminated in this session. Tsunoda quietly sitting pretty in 9th at the moment in the RB, some way ahead of his teammate Daniel Ricciardo, who's on an outlap at the moment in the other RB. Albon through the middle sector, coming through the left-hander of 23, keeps it nice and tight. Personal best once again from him in the middle sector. Hamilton going well in the middle sector as well, as Albon manages a little bit of traffic. The Red Bull of Max Verstappen gets nicely out of the way. Round the final corner for Albon. Hamilton lighting up the middle sector as he now comes into the final sector of his lap. 50 seconds on the clock. Behrman begins his final flying lap. Albon crosses the line, 12th fastest. That'll be all he can do. 3/10 between him and safety into the top 10. Ricciardo out there on a lap as well.
Trying to make something happen in that RB, which has been lacking a bit of pace this weekend. Tsunoda in the top 10, so it can be done, but it's not even a green sector from Ricciardo as he goes through for the first sector. He's looking a little bit off kilter, just missing a bit of the line in the apex of turn 13, going through 15, 16, 17 now, and the rear wiggling. It doesn't look like a happy car.
Russell goes 5th in the Mercedes. Hamilton only improves to 9th spot. Tsunoda on a lap at the moment in the middle sector. Behrman's up on Tsunoda in the first sector. Ricciardo struggling in the first sector, better in the middle sector. Lando Norris also out there in the McLaren, just coming towards the end of his lap. He's currently in 6th, looking like he's about to finish a decent lap. Behrman, 1/1000th of a second off in the middle sector to get himself up into the top 10. Tsunoda is out there on a lap, and Behrman, they're currently 10th and 11th. That is 11th downwards is the cutoff. Ricciardo in the other RB will be first to cross the line. He can't improve. Ricciardo will start 14th at best. Stroll's also out there in 8th. Hamilton might be at risk here as Tsunoda goes up into 8th. This is Behrman across the line. Can he get into the top 10? No, he just misses out on Q3 by less than 0.5 of a second. Oliver Behrman in his debut qualifying will start at best 11th in the Ferrari. Lewis Hamilton makes it through by a whisker.
Less than a whisker. My God, that was close. And poor Behrman, you have to feel for him. That just didn't quite go his way. It was going to be hard work to get a lap in on those tyres after they'd given their best already on that first push lap. And he was had plenty of green mini sectors, but couldn't quite pull it all together. Here's Hamilton.
Couldn't improve, mate. Just got no grip, mate.
Okay. And that's Hamilton on the radio. Couldn't improve, got no grip. He makes it through into the top 10. Only just.
So Behrman will obviously be disappointed because he'll have wanted to get into the top 10 because the car's capable of getting into the top 10. And racing drivers are perfectionists. They want to do the best they possibly can. But in context, he's just over 0.5 second off Charles Leclerc, who improved his time at the end there to be pretty close behind Max Verstappen, about a 10th. So I think that's a very creditable effort by Behrman, and there'll be a lot of people who are impressed up and down the pit lane. Let's bear in mind he has no practice day at all. Here's the radio.
That was a good lap, good last sector, but the last corner probably exit.
Sorry, says it all, doesn't it? Like, you can feel the disappointment in his voice there, but it's a very good effort by him, and I think people will be impressed.
I think you've summed it up perfectly. He will be disappointed. It's an absolutely creditable performance, but yeah, he will have wanted more, especially seeing how close he was able to get to Charles Leclerc after the first couple of runs. But it just felt like he tightened up a bit in that first run. That led to those mistakes. And when he had the pace to get through, if he just put a clean lap together, and then yeah, it's hard to know if he could have done it on that final lap, if it was more mistakes or if it was just that the tyres were dropping away from him. I think the latter certainly played a big role, but no, he's done himself fairly proud there, and he still has the race tomorrow as well.
Yeah, and it's also a cycle, isn't it, Jack? Because they put him out earlier on for that final run to give him exactly that opportunity in case he made a mistake, whereas Leclerc, so he'll have had more fuel in his car, for example, than Leclerc did. Here's some radio.
Yeah, it was a messy session, so that it was tough one. I mean, it was super difficult.
Yeah, he knows what you've been saying, Jack, basically, doesn't he? So he goes out, he's got a little bit more fuel in his car, he makes that mistake at turn 21. He brushes the wall. We've just seen it, sparks come up. I think he probably did hit the wall slightly with his rear tyre on the entry there to the fastest chicane on the lap. That in itself will have knocked his confidence going into the final run, and then of course his tyres aren't at their peak, so it becomes a cycle. So in context, half a second's a good job.
Well, that brings to an end Q2, and just on Behrman again, failing to follow race direction instructions, the maximum delta time, that will now be investigated after the session. End of Q2, and out go Oliver Behrman in the Ferrari, Alex Albon in the Williams in 12th, Kevin Magnussen in the Haas 13th, Daniel Ricciardo in the RB in 14th, and Nico Hülkenberg with power issues in his Haas had to pull over on the side of the road and end his qualifying session early. He'll start at best 15th as we now head into the top 10 shootout and the fight for pole. But it's Max Verstappen in the Red Bull who is looking unstoppable to take his second pole position of the season.
I tell you what, after the talk of Alonso playing down his chances and saying that they were flattered a bit yesterday, he's coming good on the performance that you put on the practice time sheets. He's really in the fight for the top three, if not the pole position. Less than a 10th behind Verstappen and 100th behind Leclerc in that session.
Yeah, and he only did one run as well, didn't he? Whereas Leclerc did two. So it is, Verstappen, Leclerc and Alonso look like the fastest three. I think we pretty much know who's going to be first. Who's going to be second and third?
Well, that is the question, isn't it? Certainly, despite being out of qualifying, Nico Hülkenberg sat on a nice deck chair having a chat with one of the marshals, the music blaring, helmet off, and having a bit of a jam to the music is the Hulk. So taking the wins where he can get them. Oliver Behrman back out of the car and heading to get Wade, takes his helmet off. Looks like he worked hard for that one. But a very decent first effort from the 18-year-old British racer. So through into the top 10, 2 Red Bulls, 2 Aston Martins, 2 McLarens, 2 Mercedes, and 1 RB of Yuki Tsunoda. Good effort from Yuki Tsunoda, out-qualifying Daniel Ricciardo. He finished 8th fastest at the end of that session.
Yeah, that's developing into quite an interesting situation, isn't it? Daniel Ricciardo was brought back by Red Bull, hoping that he might be able to recover his mojo, the Daniel Ricciardo of old, rather than the Daniel Ricciardo that was at McLaren, who ended up getting fired a year before the end of his contract. There's not a lot of evidence so far that the sort of real Daniel Ricciardo of old is back. I don't think Red Bull would have expected that Daniel Ricciardo to be slower on a regular basis, which he has been, frankly, than Yuki Tsunoda.
Yeah, in Q2, fastest laps, Ricciardo half a second slower than Yuki Tsunoda, who out-qualifies Ricciardo for the second consecutive race weekend in a row. We'll see what he's got.
It's an important discussion, Harry, in the context of an underperforming Checo. So, even if Checo's not getting the job done in that second Red Bull, if they can't replace him with anyone decent from that RB, it makes it even more difficult situation for the Red Bull management. So, and then you start asking questions about whether people like Liam Lawson should be given another chance after his debut last year. But that's a whole topic, isn't it?
I'm sure we could get stuck into that in a Checker Flag podcast as well. Still under the lights as the crowd, as the grandstands and the crowd fill up, excited to see now the fight for the top 10 in the final part of qualifying to set the grid for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. The 4th Saudi Arabian Grand Prix coming onto the calendar back in 2021. 3 different winners from the 3 races. Lewis Hamilton winning in 2021, Max Verstappen in 2022, and most recently Sergio Perez winning last season. And Max Verstappen looking to take pole when he has never taken pole here, not even started on the front row here before.
He's been on course to take pole, hasn't he? But yeah, never actually got the job done. So it'll be a rare first for Max, and getting another little mini queue forming ahead of green flag here. Not as long as in previous sessions, but people are still pretty keen to get out and set their times early here.
Leclerc first out, then Hamilton. fresh set of soft rubber bolted on to the cars. Then Hamilton comes out along with Russell. Piastri and the McLaren also out there as well, ready to take on the 27 turns that await them around this track. Just adjacent to the Red Sea. Sergio Perez peels out of his garage, quickly followed by Max Verstappen. Perez, a man needing to perform in every single session this season to justify a contract renewal from Red Bull at the end of the year in one of the most hotly contested seats in what will be one of the biggest driver market silly seasons we've had in recent times, I think it's fair to say.
Yep, and it's kicked off early as well, hasn't it, this year, which is always nice to add a bit of entertainment to the season.
Well, this is the thing, Behrman, by racing with Ferrari this weekend, has taken all the stats that we could have used next year for first British driver since for Lewis Hamilton when he joined.
Punch, yeah, exactly.
So Hamilton will be the first British Ferrari driver since Oliver Behrman in 2024. Yeah. We'll come to that one when we get there. That's not for another year yet. He's all focused on Mercedes for the time being, but is struggling throughout the weekend. Both Mercedes have been complaining with rear-end grip. Seems to be affecting Hamilton a little more so than it is his teammate Russell. And throughout the start of the year, Hamilton just hasn't quite been on the same pace level as his teammate Russell. We'll see what he can pull out the bag in this Q3 session, but he only just made it through into this part.
Charles Leclerc there looking to start a flying lap, at least we thought so, but he's backed out of it before he's even got to turn one, and I'm not sure why, because so far in this qualifying session, indeed this weekend, none of them have been doing an extra lap to warm up the tyres, but he didn't even brake for turn one before he backed out of that. Very strange.
Yeah, he failed out straight away, didn't he, coming into the chicane. Hamilton hasn't, no. He's coming through turn 11 now, gets pitched up onto the curb that runs through it. Sparks fly from the underside of that Mercedes. First lap on the board, and he's fastest of anybody in the first sector at the moment. I should take that back. He's just been pipped by Oscar Piastri, and George Russell also going quicker to Lando Norris now, fastest of anybody in the first sector.
Yeah, he's still struggling a little bit then is Hamilton, but the timing screen's updating very quickly as it seems everyone that goes past snags that purple sector. Piastri looking very good at the moment though. On board of Hamilton, again he's slower than his teammate Russell through the sector 2, so advantage firmly in Russell's corner for now. Going down towards the last corner on board of Hamilton, big hit on the brakes. Has a little bit of oversteer again, struggling with the rear of that Mercedes. He never gets it into the apex, and that's going to be a tough one for him.
Russell's having a nice final sector as well, approaching the line, and Russell will indeed go fastest. It's a 1:28.316 from George Russell. Oscar Piastri slots himself in between the Mercedes up into second. Hamilton about 6/10 down from his teammate, so it's Russell, Piastri, Hamilton, the top three as it currently stands. Lap times though coming thick and fast. Norris puts himself up into third behind Piastri, who is only 9,000ths of a second back from Russell. But here comes Fernando Alonso, fastest of anybody in the middle sector. Alonso's been quick in that middle sector. He's loving it in that Aston Martin, but Verstappen takes it away from him on his flying lap. Sergio Perez and the other Red Bull will come to the line first. DRS open, he goes fastest by half a second. The Mexican who started on pole here the last 2 years, a 1:27.8 for Checo. Fernando Alonso then crosses the line, can't beat Checo, does go into second, just over a 10.5 back. Max Verstappen though to the line, purple sector 1, purple sector 2, and by almost 3.5 tenths goes fastest of anybody, a 1:27.4 from the reigning champion.
Yep, those Mercs and McLarens squabbling over purple sectors. Well, Verstappen's put an end to that. He's taken all three. So Leclerc now the final challenge on this first set of runs in Q3. Delayed by 1 lap, but he's on it now across the sector 2 line, and he's half a second down on Verstappen. Don't know if that extra lap might have taken a little bit of the goodness out of those tyres, but he's not quite got the pace that we've seen in previous qualities. It might be a U set on that Ferrari, not quite sure, we'll have to check. But heading down to the final corner, and Andrew Benson shaking his head, so it looks like a new set. Big wiggle again, a la Hamilton in the last corner. He's lost a bit more time there. It's not going to be a great first attempt from this Ferrari.
No, it's 8 tenths down. It's enough for fourth fastest. Slots himself in between Alonso and Russell. So at the end of the first runs then in Q3, it's Verstappen on provisional pole, 3.5 tenths clear of his teammate Sergio Perez. Then Fernando Alonso is third, Charles Leclerc fourth, George Russell the top 5.
That was a good lap. Let's try again.
Yep. Alonso happy with that lap. It is half a second off Verstappen though. Russell was the top 5. Piastri, Norris 6th and 7th. Stroll 8th. Hamilton down in 9th, 1.3 seconds off. And Tsunoda down 10th and last of the 10 runners.
That's a big gap between Hamilton and Russell. I mean, he's been struggling all weekend, as we've said a couple of times now, but he's just not closing in, and it's costing them positions, you know, in the fight between them, the McLarens, you know, the Ferrari and the Aston Martin, it's all very tight. You know, it's going to be worth a few positions come the end of this session, but you just can't find it. But the gaps have extended out a bit. It looks like the Red Bulls have found something a little bit extra compared to the rest of the field at the moment. Alonso, the one that's, you know, only able to stay in touch by a couple of tenths, everyone else nearly a second behind.
And all starting to come into the pits now as they complete their first flying laps and then come and cool down and head back into the pits. Here's what Leclerc's saying on his cool down lap.
Yeah, I don't know. He just feels very weird on new tyres and very difficult to drive.
Copy that.
So possibly he's having some warm-up issues with the new tyres there. He's just probably referencing the fact that when they take on a used set, you do have a bit more of a reference of where you stand with that set, and usually it's a bit more consistent. With the new tyres, you should get that lovely kick of grip straight away out of the box. The first lap feels great, and then it just gets worse and worse every lap after that. But clearly feeling that the balance and the way that they're warming up isn't quite right, and doesn't seem to have a clear idea on why either.
And so what can they do between being wheeled back into the garage now and their final runs?
The main thing that they have to play with is tyre pressure, but they can also, you know, put more energy into the tyres in different ways. Whether that's through longer time in the tyre blankets to get just the raw temperature up, doing a harder warm-up lap as he drives out of the pits. Usually they take it quite easy to try and keep as much of that goodness in the tyre for the hot lap. But it's never great when a driver says that about new tyres. It's a bit of a head scratcher, and it's not a common problem.
And just looking at gaps down the field, the big one between Russell and Hamilton, as you were saying, Jack, but look at the gap between Alonso and Stroll. Alonso said it was a good lap. He's 8 tenths quicker than his teammate. I mean, I know it's only Lance Stroll, but still 8 tenths is a lot, even in that context.
You said it. But,
BBC Chief F1 writer Andrew Benson, alongside myself, Harry Benjamin, and the former F1 driver Jack Aiken. Yeah, the gap, those last, Stroll 8th, Hamilton 9th, Tsunoda 10th, are quite a bit off the rest of the field as it currently stands. Verstappen on a fresh set of shiny soft rubber comes very slowly out of the pit lane. Everybody coming out now, with the exception at the moment of Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll in those Aston Martins. Let's see if Stroll can get any closer to Alonso, if Alonso can pull off another miracle lap as he did in Bahrain, getting that one lap pace out of the Aston Martin. The race pace wasn't quite there in the race, enough for 9th and 10th come the checkered flag. But of course this is a very different circuit.
He's clearly feeling very comfortable with that Aston, isn't he, and has done since the start of the season, and that always brings out the best in Alonso, and he's driving with a freedom which is intimidating, I would say, for his rivals. You don't want to hear him sounding that preppy and positive about life in general.
An optimistic, positive Fernando Alonso is the nemesis of every other driver out there. Outlaps currently taking place, 2.5 minutes left to run as we set the grid for the top 10. We've already set the grid from 11th downwards, and the back of the field and the back row of the grid will be shared by the Williams of Logan Sargent and the Sauber of Joe New. Oliver Behrman on debut, just missing out on a Q3 spot in the Ferrari, but not by much. Hamilton only just making it through into Q3, struggling with grip, struggling in general with this Mercedes. Let's see what he can get out of it in his final flying lap. Coming through turn 11 now in Sector 1, Lewis Hamilton.
And he's 6.5 tenths off through the first sector alone on Verstappen, but he's just not quite using as much of the track as some of the other guys out there at the moment, and that's always indicative of someone who's not comfortable with their car. Russell having an awful Sector 1, so he's had a mistake in there somewhere. He's going to have to back out and try again on the next lap. Norris 1 tenth down on Verstappen, so that's a good improvement for him, but we're still following the Mercedes of Hamilton.
Hamilton's had a decent middle sector, but Verstappen's just embarking on his final lap as well, and is currently going purple. He's going quicker than his teammate Sergio Perez as well. The two Aston Martins make their way out of the garage. Norris coming through the middle sector, personal best for him, but he's about 3 tenths down on Verstappen's time. Hamilton, though, will be the first one of this gaggle to come across the line, and Alonso's right behind him, getting a brilliant tow as Alonso embarks on his final flyer. Hamilton comes to an end on his. He's almost a second off Verstappen. It's enough to put him up into 7th overall, but what can Alonso achieve? He had a fantastic tow with DRS off the back of Hamilton coming down the main straight. Alonso now setting on his final lap. Norris comes across the line in the McLaren, goes 4th fastest. Piastri also finding time as well. The Australian in the other McLaren. This is the sound of the Aussie coming to the line up to 8th gear as he scrapes along the floor of this Saudi Arabian track, quicker than his teammate by a whisker, less than a half a tenth of a second between them. Piastri and Norris currently 4th and 5th. Perez down on time in the middle sector. The RB of Yuki Tsunoda coming to the end of his lap, personal best Sector 1 and Sector 2, crosses the line, should be enough to get himself up into 9th. He does indeed do so, but Stroll now down in 10th. Coming through the middle sector, we'll see what the Canadians got. Perez then across the line, can't improve, stays second, just shy of 3.5 tenths down on his teammate Max Verstappen.
Getting on board with Charles Leclerc on the run to the line. No purple sectors, but it is an improvement. He had a bit of a wiggle from the rear across the line and up into P2, just over 3 tenths of a second behind Verstappen, but Alonso's on a better lap. He was just a tenth down on Verstappen through Sector 2, and that's his strong suit. Sector 3, though, he usually loses a little bit of time.
Leclerc splits the 2 Red Bulls in second. Alonso to the line, finds time but can't improve his position. He'll have to settle for 4th, just behind Perez. His teammate Lance Stroll follows behind him across the line, can't get himself higher than 10th, lost time in that final sector. Tsunoda will out-qualify him, and that is all the laps done in this qualifying session for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, and it is once again Max Verstappen who will start on pole position. He takes his 34th career pole position. He surpasses the record held by Jim Clark and Alain Prost for 5th on the all-time list. Max Verstappen, 2 poles in a row to kick off the 2024 Formula One season.
So, yeah, nice job, mate. That's pole position. 3 tenths to Charles.
Yeah, that was a very lovely qualifying. Car wins on rails. Really good. Well done, everyone.
Yeah, well done, Max. Both of those laps were good enough for the pole. Well done. Great job.
Cool as you like on the radio from everybody. 3 tenths clear. Another pole ahead of Charles Leclerc, getting the most out of his Ferrari. 2nd, he'll start alongside Max Verstappen. Sergio Perez 3rd.
Good job.
There wasn't anything in that lap. Yeah, thank you.
So he's saying that was everything. That was the best that he could do, and I think that was a good, I hesitate to say recovery job, but he clearly wasn't happy in the first run, and to pip Sergio Perez for the front row is a good effort from Charles Leclerc there, but horrific end of the qualifying for the 2 Mercedes. I mean, Hamilton really off in the first sector, even if he was able to pull back some lap time after that. And Russell, he did start another lap and looked to be improving, but then bailed out of it. So he didn't improve upon the first lap time that he set down in 7th and 8th. Not what they were hoping for.
Yeah, but I suppose at least it's only a tenth between Hamilton and Russell come the end of their best runs in Q3. So Hamilton managing to get a bit closer to Russell. small crumbs. Verstappen then on pole position, pulls up in the number 1 spot, clambers out of his RB20. Charles Leclerc does the same thing, clambers out of his Ferrari. A wave to the fans, and Sergio Perez in the Red Bull pulls up in 3rd spot. All 3 head over to their teams for congratulatory handshakes. Alonso 4th fastest in the Aston Martin. Oscar Piastri out-qualifies Lando Norris in 5th. Norris just behind in 6th. Then come the 2 Mercedes of Russell and Hamilton. Yuki Tsunoda out-qualifies Lance Stroll in 9th, with Stroll bringing up the rear of the top 10.
There's another investigation for a driver failing to follow the maximum delta time, and this time it's for Sergio Perez. So him and Behrman are going to the steward's office after this session for the same offence, and we'll have to wait and see if that results in any kind of a penalty for those two.
Well, we'll hear from the top 3 shortly. But for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, it will be Max Verstappen on pole position, as he has a little chat with his teammate Perez. 3/10 between them. Fine margins between everybody from second down. Just outside of the top 10 then. Stroll rounds it off in 10th. Then it's Behrman, Albon, Magnussen, Ricciardo, Hülkenberg the top 15. Bottas, Ocon, Gasly, Sargent, Zhou Guanyu 20th and last. Zhou Guanyu unable to set a lap time in the end, despite hard work from the Sauber team to repair that car from the big shunt in FP3. Managed to get him out, but he just missed the flag as it timed him out, assuming there are no penalties handed out after qualifying. That is how it will begin, but we can hear from Sergio Perez, who's chatting to Khalil Bashir to see what he made of that qualifying session under the lights in the Jeddah Corniche circuit.
P3 tomorrow, starting from the 3rd on the grid. How was the lap? Were you satisfied from the first lap? Second lap was a bit of a surprise to everyone.
Yeah, I didn't get much of an improvement on the final lap, which I think is where we missed the front row. But overall, I think Max has done a tremendous lap. I think that was not possible for me today, but I think being on the front row was achievable. But anyway, I think we are still in the fight for tomorrow. Tomorrow it's a long race, and anything can really happen.
Well, you know how to win here. Long run yesterday, your car looked really good, very stable. The tires lasted long. How is your feeling tomorrow with the fight with Charles and Max?
Yeah, will be quite interesting. I think it's going to be a long, fun race. I think there will be plenty of action. The cars around us are all very close, so it will be a very interesting battle tomorrow.
Well, good luck for tomorrow.
Thank you.
Charles, great last lap. The first lap, you had an extra lap going out, doing 2 out laps. How was it? The second lap was much better, but you had 2 preparing laps in the first try on Q3.
Yeah, the first lap in Q3 we tried something different, doing a preparation lap, but that didn't work out well for us. Then in the second lap I put everything together, and that was what was in the car today. So I'm really happy with the lap. A shame that we are a bit further away than what we hoped in qualifying, but tomorrow is the race, and I hope we'll have a good surprise and that we'll be able to challenge the Red Bulls in front.
Well, yesterday on the long runs on the soft, you had very good pace, matching the Red Bulls on the medium, obviously. But are you more confident with the car? Hopefully you sort the problems from Bahrain. How's the confidence in the team going into the race?
Well, for sure we did a step forward compared to last year. I felt more comfortable in the car. I think the car is in a better place in race runs, so we just have to focus on ourselves, and obviously we cannot change the car now for tomorrow, so we'll try and optimize everything else for the race, and then let's see what's possible tomorrow.
Well, a quick one. You woke up today with the news of Carlos. You have a new teammate. How much did you go in and help him to get onto? So he did a great job, I think, today. How was it today in the team with Oliver?
I mean, first of all, I hope Carlos will recover quickly. And then on Oli's side, I mean, he's done an incredible job. Obviously, with only 1 session in FP3, he was straight up to speed and comfortable with the car. So it's good. I'm happy for him. Obviously, it's a very special day. And the first race in Ferrari, having done only 1 session, I guess is even more so special. So I hope that tomorrow we can have a great race, both of us, and score good points for the team.
Good luck for tomorrow.
Thank you.
Max Verstappen. How are you, man? Max, finally, it has been coming for a few years. Your first pole position in Jeddah, amazing lap. I think your first lap was perfect. The second lap was a bit slower. Talk us through this great pole.
Yeah, it was a very good day, I think, so far. We improved the car like a little bit overnight, and that gave me a bit more confidence to attack the high-speed corners. And around here, of course, it depends a lot on your confidence level, how much you can, go to the limit. And I really think, today I felt very comfortable with the car. And throughout qualifying, it's pretty crazy how fast you go around here. And especially, I think in my first lap in Q3, I was very happy with how I did the lap. Felt almost a bit like the failed 21 lap, but then of course making the last score.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it was very good. I had a lot of fun, and the car was behaving really well.
Well, I mean, also you go into the race. I think yesterday the car was very stable, very good balance. I'm pretty sure you are confident going into the race tomorrow. But it's a long race here. Anything can happen with safety cars. How's the preparation going into tomorrow?
Yeah, as we have seen in the past, also there have been a lot of crazy races around here. A lot can happen. Normally people always say it's a one-stop, easy to the line, but it's not like that around here. A lot of straights as well, but I'm confident with the race that we have that tomorrow the car will work really well too.
Well, best of luck for tomorrow and enjoy the race.
Max Verstappen,
was it right?
Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez, your top three from today's qualifying session under the lights, as we have now set the grid for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, which will take place tomorrow, Saturday, and will be on air on the BBC Sport website and app from 4:45 onwards. Lights out from 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Max Verstappen with the best seat in the house once again. We'll be digesting all of qualifying and more in the Checkered Flag podcast, which will land on your feeds wherever you get your podcasts later today. But in the meantime, my thanks to the BBC's chief F1 writer Andrew Benson, former F1 driver Jack Aitken. I've been Harry Benjamin, and this has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.